Welcome to the Sports Story. I'm your host, Michael McMahon, and I want to give a quick happy birthday shout out to my sister Tristan. I hope you have a great day. And getting on to what we're going to talk about on today's Sports Story, we're going to talk about UFC 250 that took place Saturday night, and after watching that, there was no way I couldn't discuss this card. For the casual fan, you don't see many big names, but if you've been following the UFC for at least, I would say 2 years, you would know this is a low-key stacked card. And we have Chase Hooper, the 20-year-old phenom. We have Sean O'Malley. We have Cody No Love Garbrandt. We have Amanda, the Lioness Nunez, defending one of her two belts, and more. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so to start the show, I'm going to do something I usually don't do, and that's discussing an early prelim bout. Evan Dunham, who is from Eugene, Oregon, also from that area, so it's really exciting to see a fighter who is from the same area as you. And even though he lost, he got submitted on Saturday on the early prelim card. I want to take a quick second to tell him, win or lose, I'll be on your side. And Dunham has close to 30 fights, but not a lot of buzz surrounding him. And maybe he needs to take some lessons from Colby Covington. I'm just kidding. But with all sincerity, I hope we get to see Evan back in the cage soon and hopefully able to redeem himself. And then I'm going to talk about one more fight that was on the prelim card because Chase Hooper, he's 9-0. And he's going in to face Alex Caceres. And Caceres has been practicing MMA and fighting in the UFC longer than Chase Hooper has been alive. And because of this fact, Caceres controlled the ring and momentum the entire time, earning himself a decision victory over Chase Hooper. And losing the undefeated title can sting. Chase posted on his Twitter and Instagram already in high spirits, knowing that losses happen. And you really just have to roll with them at the end of the day. And that being said, Hooper needs to practice his stand-up game a lot. Like a lot more if he expects to fight ranked opponents and win. But moving on to the main card, another young sensation, Sean O'Malley. He has a confident social media presence and an even stronger ring presence. O'Malley, who's 11-0 and facing veteran fighter Eddie Wineland, who has over 30 fights, an obvious disadvantage for the young star, but he faced it a lot better than Hooper. O'Malley finishes Wineland inside 2 minutes, showing off the power he possesses in his hands. And O'Malley looked excellent. Like, it literally blew my mind how good he looked. Just physically, his movements, his technique, just everything looked good. Eddie Wineland ducked a lucky kick, or not a lucky kick, a wild kick that if that would have connected, it would have been game over for him right then. But he was able to compose himself. O'Malley was able to compose himself after that wild kick and then punch him and knock him out. And it was just a real crazy finish inside of 2 minutes. And you don't really see that from the younger people. So showing off that power he possesses in his hands already, and it just made O'Malley look excellent to me. He kept the pressure on Eddie and earned himself a ranked opponent matchup. And I think the best matchup is going to be Dominic Cruz. And just because he's a lower ranked, I think he's in between 10 and 15. So he's at the bottom, so it's perfect way for O'Malley to gain a little bit of credibility to go higher in the rankings. And Dominic Cruz is somebody that can and has headlined multiple pay-per-view cards. And I think it would be a great fight. And I believe O'Malley is the underdog in this fight as well. I mean, he just has to be. He's going to be the underdog in Vegas, I guarantee you, if this matchup is made. And if he can pass this test, you know that the Sugar Show is here to stay. And any news on Sean Sugar O'Malley, or the Sugar Show he likes to call it, it's going to be posted to my Twitter, The Sports Story, or at Michael McMahon1. I will leave I'll leave the link in my description. And Sugar Sean, he wasn't the only bantamweight looking to get ahead in the rankings for that vacant title. If you did not know, Henry Triple C Cejudo retired after his last fight, defeating Dominic Cruz, retaining his bantamweight title. That was a title fight. He beat Dominic Cruz, and then right after he said, I have nothing more to prove, I'm retiring. And so that leaves an open belt, and that leads to people wanting to, or people needing to fight for it. And at the top of that list was Aljamain Sterling and Corey Sandhagen, and they're going to fight for who is going to fight for the title. So this isn't the title fight. Whoever wins this one advances on. So Aljamain, the Funk Master Sterling, he's been in the shadows for a while, but he finally gets his shot at that number one contender fight against Corey Sandhagen. And Sandhagen has been putting on a show of his own the last few fights as well. And the Funk Master had one thing on his mind the entire time. And it's pretty good that Aljamain Sterling came into this fight focused. He went straight for Corey Sandhagen's back, didn't let Corey Sandhagen do his weird style. Not necessarily a weird style, but Corey Sandhagen is just a guy that if you leave an opening, he's going to find it and he's going to knock you out. Whether it be with knees, feet, fists, elbows, shoulder, whatever it is, Corey Sandhagen is the type of guy that's going to try to get the fight done any means possible. So Aljamain Sterling just went into that octagon. He immediately got Corey Sandhagen's back, immediately put him in a body triangle, wasn't able to get the headlock locked in immediately, but after about 30 seconds of wrestling for it, Corey Sandhagen's chin got an arm right underneath it, and Sandhagen tapped out to a rear naked choke. But unfortunately for Sandhagen, right as he tapped, he also passed out. It's kind of sad to watch, but good performance by Aljamain Sterling, and I believe he's going to be fighting for the title next. And there's a lot of bantamweights on this card. So I'm sorry for killing the bantamweights or talking so much about the bantamweights, but it's a bantamweight show. And the other bantamweight on the card, it was the co-main event. It was Cody Garbrandt, and he's been on a 3-fight losing streak actually against TJ Dillashaw, 2 fights, and then he came back and lost a decision to another great fighter. The reason he is in this fight because he is going to face Rafael Asunko. And Cody stopped trying to show off as much and focused on getting clean combos off. Technical fighting is more effective for Cody than trying to rush in every time, which was a huge problem. You can tell it threw off Rafael Asunko because Rafael, he was the more aggressive one. I think he was really expecting Cody to be old Cody and try to rush in and get the knockout. But Cody was more of a defensive fighter and let Rafael come at him. And because Rafael was coming at him so much, Cody was able to duck and just get off a crazy hook that as soon as Rafael's bodies hit the floor, the buzzer hit the floor, and Keith Peterson had no other choice but to call the fight off, which I felt was right. And Cody Garbrandt, he's now at that 9th ranked spot, So he's also another guy that could be a fight for Sean O'Malley. I just don't think he's going to have a top 10 opponent right away. I think he's going to have to do an opponent that's between 10 and 15 first. But if Dana White was willing to make this fight happen, I hope he does, because it would be an amazing fight, O'Malley versus Garbrandt. But, I mean, either way, O'Malley versus Garbrandt or O'Malley versus Cruz, either fight's going to be amazing. And we're going to keep on pushing with bantamweight portion of the show. The UFC, it's in a pretty sticky situation because there are 3 bantamweights deserving of a title shot. Saturday's winner, Aljamain Sterling, like we previously talked about, Jose Aldo, and Peter Yan. And actually, UFC president Dana White said it's Peter Yan and somebody. So Peter Yan pretty much has locked up his spot for the fight. And Jose Aldo may be facing Aljamain Sterling, and Aljamain Sterling might have to face another number 1 contender fight, which makes no sense. It makes no sense to say number 1 contender fight is this, and then another number 1 contender fight. And I don't really want to see Yan versus Aldo anyways, because Aljamain Sterling, he's the newer fighter, he's the younger fighter. Peter Yan, he's a newer and younger fighter as well. And I really want to see the new era push. I'm done with Jose Aldo. I've seen enough. And I just personally hope they skip over the Sterling versus Aldo fight and just give us Yan versus Sterling. It's a fight that the fans want, and it would be ridiculous keeping a title open that long, in my opinion. The only reason why Sterling and Aldo should fight for that spot next to Yan is because Cejudo comes back. Dana also said that if Cejudo wants it being the title shot before he schedules the next title fight, it's Cejudo's. So I think Dana might be purposely holding the division up to give Cejudo that chance as well, which I don't think is fair at all. I mean, look how long Dana has held up heavyweight now, waiting on both Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic. And I don't want to get stuck too long because I can go on forever on the ranking system and who gets the title shots. I think it's all a little messed up and there needs to be some sort of guidelines, not just a couple people saying this is what we want. It really it deprives the fighters of fair shots and fair ways of getting a title shot, and it really screws the fans over sometimes, because Dana will make a fight that he wants this young star to go up for no reason, somebody, and then he loses. That young star will lose, and then we don't have that young star anymore. And I just hope things kind of go a little different with who gets picked to fight who in terms of rankings and title shots. But I got to transition to the heaviest women's belt in the UFC. Amanda, the Lioness Nunes, is defending it as well. She holds it. She's defending it against number 1 contender Felicia Spencer. And the Lioness, man, she's been fighting very technical lately. And she doesn't overexpose herself and only lets the fist fly when she knows she isn't going to get hit back. And Nunes doesn't mind winning on the card, or winning on the cards, or winning by decision, because she wants to keep her fight streak alive. And Felicia tried her best to come out aggressive, but was met with a fist every time she opened herself up. Every time Felicia wanted a takedown, Nunes reversed it and landed on top. She couldn't do anything. Felicia Spencer couldn't do anything but get hit. And she took a punishment. She got punished for it too. And that fight, it went to decision. And just because of the dominance of Amanda Nunes, she was able to get the victory by unanimous decision. But during that fight, I really felt like Amanda was wanting and really going for a submission win. And maybe the Lioness is getting bored of turning ladies' lights out and wants to be more dominant on the ground. And Ronda Rousey, she's still the GOAT on the ground of the women's division. I mean, if you go back and you look at the way Ronda Rousey ragdoll women and put them in submissions just dominantly, I mean, there's no other ground female like Ronda Rousey. I mean, Valentina Shevchenko is up there, but not to the stint that Ronda Rousey is in. And so I think that might be something Nunes is eyeing, because that's like the last thing that Nunes really needs to be the greatest, to be the queen of everything. Amanda, she holds the 135 and the 145 title. She's a champ. And that's impressive enough. But she has beat every woman that has held each title before her. There's 4 people that has held the 135 title, and there's 2 females who have held the 145 titles before Amanda Nunes. And Amanda Nunes has beat all of them. She's even beat the 125-pound champion Valentina Shevchenko, as I just referred to, or who I just referred to. So, I mean, she's just in a league of her own already, and she doesn't necessarily need the submissions to be the greatest female fighter ever, one of the greatest fighters ever, period. Like, not even talking about genders at this point. It's just one of the pound for pound, one of the greatest fighters ever. What she's doing is incredible to me. And, I mean, I don't mean to go on and on about Amanda Nunes, but when I sit back and I look at everything she's done, when I remember the fights I've watched of her, it's honestly mind-numbing how great she is. And again, when I find out who her next opponent is, because these 2 divisions are pretty much depleted of talent. We have Megan Anderson in 135 who wants to fight, but Felicia Spencer just beat Megan Anderson to go fight Amanda Nunes, so I'm not sure if Megan Anderson is ready yet for Amanda Nunes, and why throw her out there when she knows she's going to get killed, so we're going to be in the same situation. Let Megan Anderson get some more training and come fully prepared for a fight like this. Don't just put her out there because she's the only one left. Just give Amanda Nunes some compensation for some time off and start farming for female fighters, I would say. But as soon as I find anything out for a next opponent, I'll post it on my Twitter. So make sure you go to follow me on Twitter. It's titled The Sports Story or Michael McMahon 1. Put the @ sign in front of it. And also, I'll add it in the description of this podcast. For the last segment of the day, in other news, Jon Jones, Jorge Masvidal, and Conor McGregor all have similar things in common. They want more money. Do you know what else they have in common? Dana White labeled them as independent contractors, meaning if they don't like what he has to offer, they cannot fight. They don't have to fight, and they can go somewhere else. The problem is where do they go that will offer more? And that answer is nowhere. Because there's no fighting company quite like the UFC. Nobody watches more. Nobody watches anything but UFC pretty much. People watch Bellator and the F1 series, but which is the Fighting One Championship, but they're not offering the type of money that Jon Jones has gotten or Conor McGregor has gotten or even the money that Jorge Masvidal has gotten. So I'm not sure why they're really trying to bite the hand that is feeding basically, but they just need to be more active. They need to actively drive up the ratings, actively fighting, and that makes the money. That makes it so there's more money to give. And it's not like Dana shouts out a card and it generates $300 million and it just, every time he shouts out a card, it keeps going up. It's not how it works at all. The fighters and the PR teams have to market so people will buy these cards. It's just like the WNBA. The amount they get paid will go up based on the CBAs, and that is mainly based on the ratings. And I understand they think they are worth more. They are probably right. But until they break down these pay barriers, there's nothing Dana can do. And Conor earned his pay while he was actively fighting. And he's not the draw he used to be because he's not fighting as often as he was. And it's not as suspenseful as it was, as he has a couple losses. So it's not like he's that big of a draw as he was when he was on that amazing win streak. One of the best like short spurts of like greatness that we've ever seen. And same with Jones. But Jorge Masvidal, he needs to be drug tested if he really thinks he has earned more than John Jones and Conor McGregor. For Jorge, I would just tell him just to accept what you got. You don't have a belt. The only belt you have is the BMF belt. And I mean, it's not really even a belt. It really isn't. But the last thing on the podcast in other news, I tweeted out last night that Conor is as retired as DC. Conor is as retired as Daniel Cormier. Just simple tweet just like that. And guess what? 3 hours later, Stipe Miocic said it is time to come back. And DC commented with heart eyes and with the quote, "You're done." So even though Daniel Cormier coming back for a trilogy fight against Stipe has nothing to do with Conor, I just had and still have a feeling in my stomach we have not seen the last of these two great fighters. And any more updates on these fighters as I wrap up the show and any upcoming fights can be found on my Facebook page, The Sports Story, and again on Twitter, The Sports Story, or at Michael McMahon1. And if you are listening to this on YouTube, I am begging you to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. I also love comments and replying back to fans. Thank you guys. That does it for this episode of The Sports Story. And again, happy birthday to my big sister Tristan, and a happy birthday shout out to the GOAT and someone who has had a tremendous impact on my life, Kanye West. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen.